Welcome to Funnel Reboot. As we wrap this series of marketing author interviews, I'm holding a giveaway as my thanks for listening. The prizes are books we've featured here, signed by the author. This is the one place I'm putting this announcement. You're only hearing this because you listen here. To be entered for the draw, all you have to do is post something on social media with the hashtag marketingbooks. So it can be something about the book you heard, a book you're reading, mentioning the show in general. It just needs to have that hashtag. And there are actually going to be multiple draws, one for every book that I have, and your name will be put in future rounds of this type, so you're practically guaranteed to win. The deadline has been extended to midnight Eastern Time on January 30th, 2022. So go create a Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook post that uses that one word hashtag marketingbooks to be entered. And now to the show.
Welcome to Funnel Reboot, the podcast that shares ideas on how to upgrade your lead generation. Here is your host, Glenn Schmeltzley.
Hey, Glenn here. Welcome to Funnel Reboot, where we upgrade your lead generation. Today, we're diving into the bare essentials needed for digital marketing. But first, please let me remind you that I want to hear what you want to hear in upcoming episodes. So leave me your feedback, share with me who you'd like to hear. You can reach out on social at Funnel Reboot or fill out the form on our site or call listener feedback at 613-703-7073. On to today's show. Those of us who work in a marketing role or are marketing our own company can debate how this tactic is better than that tactic. And depending on which conference you attend or which article you read, you'll get a different opinion. But there are a few elements that a company must have to make all of this possible. It's their web and social properties. These foundational assets are what everything else sits on top of. And though I may be preaching to the choir here, these basics must be properly managed, or it's all for naught. My guest has had her own business for 15 years. She's seen nearly every problem that can happen through her experience as a web consultant. 10 years ago, she established Camp Tech, a company whose mission is to hold workshops showing the right way to use marketing and website applications. So she knows whereof she speaks. Her clear explanations of web technologies earned her spots on nationally airing Canadian TV shows and Canadian radio. She also writes a tech column in one of Canada's national newspapers that reaches 6 million people a week. She's here today because in 2020, she authored a book covering the fundamentals of managing these pieces. I want you to listen as we cover everything from domain registration and maintenance, accessibility, privacy laws, including connecting PPC channels like Google Ads, setting up your metrics. I certainly learned some things on this, despite the fact that I do this day in and day out for my career. So please join me in welcoming Avery Swartz. I'm really pleased to welcome Avery Swartz. How are you doing, Avery?
Oh, thank you so much for having me here, Glenn. I'm so excited to be a guest on your podcast.
Well, I'm happy, and you are in great company. This is part of a series that we're doing where we talk with authors of recently released titles that are smack dab in the digital marketing world.
Cool.
This one, of course, the book we're talking about that you have put out is called See You on the Internet, Building Your Small Business with Digital Marketing. Did I get that?
Yeah, you got it. That's it.
All right, perfect. So you had, I think it becomes very clear right from the beginning of the book, you had some personal knowledge that you were speaking from. This isn't I'm a journalist and I went out and I talked to people. This is you should do these things because I've done them.
Yes.
Do you want to maybe give me a little bit of how that came about?
Yeah, sure. So the 5 second, Avery background story is that I actually come from the fine arts world. I was really big into the performing arts, particularly working as an administrator and a producer and a publicist for the performing arts. And then I made a career change after about 10 years in that world, where I became a graphic designer turned web designer. And I ran a web design studio for over a decade. And I started another business in addition to my web studio, where I was mostly working with nonprofits and small businesses. And I started a side business because oftentimes my clients were asking me questions about, where they could go to learn more about digital marketing beyond, I would help them get their website online. And then they would say, okay, Avery, that's great. Thank you so much. But where can I learn how to, do Twitter better or make an email newsletter? And I live in Toronto, and in Toronto at that time, this is like late 2011, early 2012. So we're coming up on 10 years. There really wasn't anywhere to send them. So I literally, I have some pretty wonderful nerdy friends, and I turned to my nerdy friends and I said, hey, what do you think about potentially teaching some of the stuff that we know? And we rented a room and bought some pizzas and sold tickets and started saying, we'll teach you how to build a website using WordPress in one day, or in 3 hours, we'll teach you what you need to know about using MailChimp for email marketing. And, I always thought that these workshops were going to be just a little kind of small side to my web design studio. And then, of course, shows how much I know, the workshops really took off and became, a nice, larger small business, where we started running workshops across Canada in multiple cities, and now, oh gosh, that company is called Camp Tech. And that company is coming up on 10. Oh gosh, it's 10 years. And I think we're in like the hundreds of thousands now in terms of how many people we've run workshops for.
Yeah,
So,
I'm in Ottawa. I've seen them here, and I know that they've been all across Canada. So you clearly know whereof you speak. And 10 years for Camp Tech, and it sounds like, I think you said 15 years altogether.
Altogether, because the web studio and Camp Tech definitely did overlap for a while. And I eventually, honestly, Glenn, I couldn't keep up with all of the web design trends and coding in particular. And so I had to just kind of let that slide in favor of running the workshops. But the book is me taking everything I know from running my own small business and also advising so many, many, many others and teaching so many others. And I kind of just took everything I know and I'm like, I'm going to write all this down. We're going to put it out in the world. And there it is.
Which I think is just another manifestation of what you were doing with the website, the designing and consulting work, except you've added several zeros on it in terms of the number of people that you can help.
Yeah, I love that. I love that scale. We would have, especially before the pandemic, when we were running all of our workshops were in person. Now we're doing some that are available online, but we would get emails from people saying, I really want to learn from you, but I don't live in the town where you are running your workshops.
Right.
Or I can't afford your consulting fees or whatever it might be. So the book is really a way to get it out. And I see, people will post pictures on Instagram or something, and they'll I saw somebody posted a picture of my book and saying, I'm learning about digital marketing today, and I couldn't identify anything in their background. And I messaged them and I said, where are you? And they said, oh, I'm in Munich. And I went, oh my gosh, shut the front door. Someone in Germany is reading a book that I wrote. How cool is that? It was a real amazing moment.
And I guess, as the title says, I mean, that's the thing about the internet. Geography doesn't matter. You can, get to it anywhere. I think what really interested me was, okay, so I started into the book and I was thinking that you would get right to the meat and potatoes of the web stuff, right? But you didn't. You kind of held it off, maybe let me cool my heels for a minute. And instead you started talking less as a marketer and more as like a person who's leading a business, right? And if our listeners are, let's say marketing leaders or people that have budgets to manage, or they're maybe freelancing or they run an agency, I think they will, definitely identify with that is, okay, wait a minute. Let's start with the business fundamentals first, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you say that a lot of people, kind of will say that they're doing that because they'll start to grab all the KPIs that are out there.
Yeah.
And you actually tell them, okay, that's the wrong approach. Which approach do you favor for getting the metrics down?
Yeah, for sure. So, one of the things that I say in the book is that we are drowning in data, and there's very little insight in all of it. And we can look at metrics and collect KPIs like they're charms on a charm bracelet, but
right,
really, if it doesn't show you anything or indicate that you're any closer to your goals, then why are we even wasting our time looking at it? And so that's what I say: start with your goals. You've got to start with what the heck you're trying to do. And if you can be as specific and measurable and, realistic, I like SMART goals personally, to be specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time bound. To state your goals that way, and then start with your goal. Then that will determine what you should be measuring, what activities you should be pursuing. There's so much of, there's such a sense of FOMO, or, the fear of missing out with digital marketing and social media marketing in particular, where people keep hearing about, the latest, coolest social media platform, or, some tool that they want to use, that they will just start using it, immediately rush in, oh, if I don't start using it, then I'll be the last one to sign up. I won't get my username or something like that. But really, before you rush in with the FOMO, stop and ask yourself, is this actually going to get me any closer to my goal? And if not, then, maybe restrain. And if it is, then sure, fun, run with it, have fun.
You go throughout the book with stories of past clients. I think Lena would be kind of one of the ones that you talked about. She was looking at dumping whatever she was doing. I think she was a realtor, and it was Allo was the social platform.
Yeah. Which is so funny because, okay, I will say that all of the client anecdotes throughout my book are real people, but I've changed all of their names.
Right, to protect the guilty. Got it.
Although I think if some clients, there's a few in particular, they would be able to read it and instantly see themselves.
We've all made things that make us cringe.
It's funny because I was writing a lot of this book in 2018 and 2019, and that feels like ancient history now, because there was a social media platform called Allo, or ALLO. So Allo, I don't know how you're supposed to say it. That was the cool new one at the time. Like, this is before TikTok was even a glimmer in somebody's eye.
I had somebody tell me I had to get on Yo.
Yes, I remember Yo. They come and go so fast. It is our job as marketers to be aware of them. But you can't be everywhere, and you can't be, unless it is your job as a social media manager.
Right.
That is its own job. And then digital marketing goes even beyond that. So unless it is literally your job to sit and be on platforms all day, every day, there is no way you can possibly do it all. So you have to be strategic about what you're going to do. And that strategy needs to be tied to what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah. And if it's, got some way of, even by proxy, getting to revenue, then by all means measure it. Otherwise,
absolutely,
don't be waiting for the phone to ring because you've run headlong over onto some platform. The home base, of course, that you talk about is the website and your domain. And you give some extremely practical advice around that. And I think this is kind of a subtext to what you're describing for many of these things. But I think the website and domain bring it very clear when you talk about how it's important, even if someone isn't technical, that they soldier through registering and recording information about their domain, rather than just letting a freelancer, agency, your cousin, fill in the blank, do it for them. Why?
I mean, first and foremost, it's about ownership. Ownership of your domain and everything that you set up that has to do with your website. You literally own it. So you should probably have some sort of an idea of where it is. It is like quite literally a business asset. So you should know what it is. Also, there's an issue here about legality and ownership. I mentioned in my book that if someone else registers your domain for you, at the very least, make sure that they're putting it in your name, because the ownership of a domain name is a legal thing. And, for anybody that has ever tried to buy a domain name that's already been registered, and if you try and go through that really awful process of trying to get it from somebody else, it's a very complicated legal process to get a domain name from someone else. So as much as, I love web professionals that help people, with some of this more technical stuff, super great. Ask for some help. But when it comes to the moment of like whose name goes on the domain registration, it needs to be your name or your corporation's name, whatever it is, and not, just your web guy or whoever. And then, heaven forbid your web guy, you don't like him anymore, or he gets hit by a truck or something. Like, you should be able to know what this stuff is, how to access it. It's just good business. Keep track of your own stuff.
Yeah. And I think what sets it in a category of its own, like even beyond, let's say you have some money in the company bank account and, you put it into a GIC, or, you have a year-long contract on a piece of marketing software. What sets this aside from everything else is it's lasting. It has an open-ended end date. Mm-hmm. And that not only applies, like this asset thinking, I think first off, it's good because it allows people to know that this is something that they should start to wrap their minds around making the money.
Yes.
And that's important because if something is just an expense, we tend to think about starving it, right? How do I spend the least on this? But if it's an asset, it's like, how do I nourish it?
Yeah.
Right. And this is not just a dollar and cents thing. This is let's get to the next one. You tell people, that website you just finished working so hard on and that you love, there's going to come a time when you need to kill it and replace the platform. Right.
Yes.
So tell me about that, and tell me how you equip the readers to, think about how they're going to do that, and, pony up some money, but also put a whole lot of time into refreshing the site.
Yes, absolutely. And, I think you're absolutely right when you talk about, any marketing activity, especially when it comes to some of our digital stuff, like our websites and our digital properties. It can be really tempting to just think of them as a cost center. This is our website is a money pit, or our, CRM software is really expensive, and we're like, nah, I don't want to, stay on top of it, and it's just costing us money, and this is bleh. I really challenge business owners and marketers to instead think about your digital properties as tools and things that can be manipulated and levers that can be pulled to get you more towards, at the end of the day, your revenue or your impact, or whatever it is you want to do in the world. And so, one of those is your website. And yes, you will likely have to redo your website. Your website should always be up to date in terms of reflecting what's going on in the business. And that might mean, minor content changes, even like every day or once a week or whatever it might be. New products should be going up, services should be changed. If you're, changing your hours of business for the upcoming holidays or anything like that, you always change that. But there will likely come a time where your entire website needs to be thrown out. And
so you're speaking actually to me right now.
Is it time to throw out your website, Glenn?
Website confessional. It's 2016.
Yeah.
Is the time that my site actually got an entire rebuild. But let's use me as I don't mind being the guinea pig. You talk about a couple, I believe, who had a website, and they went through, I think, an iteration where it was in the early 2010s, but then they hit that 2016, 2017 inflection point. Tell us what major things have been happening, because that's now 5 years ago. So
Yeah.
what major things, if any of us are in the same boat I'm in, should we really be thinking about updating for?
Sure. So there's kind of three main things that a modern website needs to be, and I think of these as just table stakes. That a website in late 2021 or early 2022, your website must be mobile friendly. It has to render very well on a mobile device, smartphone. Similarly, your website needs to be fast, and so in the web world, we call that performance. But really, it's how fast does the site load? Does it load well when you're on a mobile network? If you're in the city and you've got 5G on your mobile device, it's not so bad. But go out in the country and see if your site loads on 3G or 4G. See see how well your site does then. Another big one is making sure that your website is accessible. And so
Yeah.
what we mean by accessibility is accessible to website visitors who may be experiencing a disability. So that could be, a cognitive disability, a visual disability. And not only should your website be accessible, and what I mean by that is that it is in accordance with accessibility laws and accessibility guidelines around the world. It I mean, I believe that websites should be accessible because it's just the right thing to do as a human, to make a website that's accessible to other humans. But it should also be accessible because there may actually be laws in your region that say it has to be. And there
Yes.
are some, particularly in Ontario and in Canada and a few
Yep.
other places around the world. And then also there's a good business case for accessibility. I mean, when we're talking about things like a visual disability on the web, technically, color blindness would be a disability in terms of like viewing a website. Color blindness is like 12% of the population.
Yeah.
Do you want to potentially make a design choice on your site that makes your site less easy to understand and view and buy and all that stuff for 12% of the population? I mean, that's just a bad business decision. So,
Yeah.
making it all those things.
Or running those checkers, and we'll include some links on the show notes
Yeah.
to some of the standards, but they'll even highlight, you may not have noticed that you have some very low contrast places on your site. And whether it's the 12% or the rest of us, people may just gloss right by that stuff. And
Totally.
you thought it was important. So, you need to go back in and look at it. So you've mentioned the mobility, you've mentioned the, and just on the mobility, I loved one thing you said in there. You said, because this really hit home, people's internet devices don't stay the same. So neither can your website, right? So here we are with, of course, phones are here, but we're probably not done, right? We've got voice search, watches, other IoT things that are coming along. So this is something that, in for a penny, in for a pound.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then we've got accessibility. And then I guess the last one, since the regulatory stuff has come up, is privacy, right?
Yes, of course.
So since, if we haven't touched our website in 5 years, maybe we need to think about what jurisdiction we're in, what jurisdiction our clients are in, and if we're compliant.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's a really big one, especially if you are doing business with anybody, either you yourself are located in, or you have clients that are located in or from, the European Union. That means that you need to be in compliance with the GDPR, which is, the most stringent form of privacy regulation for the web worldwide. But then there's also regional ones, like, I'm from Canada. So of course, where we look at what do we have here, there's PIPEDA, which is the Canada's privacy law, which has just recently been overhauled. There's some new stuff in PIPEDA that's a lot more stringent than it was before. We also have the Canadian anti-spam legislation. In America, there's a lot of new legislation in California. In America, it goes state by state, which is a bit weird. But California is the one that tends to have the most stringent. So, paying attention to what all this stuff is. And, it can really make your head spin when you're looking at all of the stuff out there, and what regulations do you need to be in compliance with, and how do you know, and do you know what you don't know, and all that stuff. So I recommend make your website as compliant as you can with the GDPR, which is the one in the EU, because it's the most stringent. So if you are compliant with the General Data Protection Regulation or the GDPR in the EU, then you're likely going to be fine. Everywhere else in the world.
The logic I've heard is, yes, the GDPR for its citizenry made it very, tough. Don't your customers, no matter where they are in the world, deserve the same? Like,
right?
Doesn't it, there shouldn't be a second-class citizen of privacy.
Exactly. Yeah. And this is one of those things where it comes down to, integrity, which is a key component to a lot of brands. I think
Trust.
I think it's in the book where say like you wouldn't go into a restaurant with a big, health code infraction posted on the window.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to go to your website with, big privacy, accessibility, any of those kind of infractions.
And yet, and Google is, as a search engine, more than prepared. Think of any website that dragged their feet on putting in SSL, right?
Yeah.
So if you didn't have that S, on the end of your domain HTTP, Google brings up this big angry warning, which is just like the health code sign.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. And that just erodes trust.
Absolutely.
Now you kind of break the privacy, and we'll just finish on this topic. You break it into two. You kind of talk about what you are doing with your own data in-house, and then you talk separately about what you're doing with client data that can be collected.
Sure.
So just help us understand. And by the way, there's some excellent stuff that goes in depth here on how to, go and generate some of these policies. I found some handy things that I'm going to start using. So, but just what's that distinction again? What are the two different sides of the privacy equation?
So this is where, all of my marketing friends that are listening, all the marketers, I'm sure you can all think of a moment you may have had with a client at some point, probably even more than once, where you may ask them for, can you loan me your password for something so I can log in on your behalf and have a look at your system? Or, how are you doing this in-house? Where are you keeping all this information? And they'll tell you that they're like storing info in an Excel sheet or a Google sheet, or they'll say, oh, this is my password, and it's like the worst password you've ever seen. Or they'll say, oh, we don't have separate user accounts for everyone in the organization. We all share the same one.
Yeah, you just give it around. It's up on the cork board.
And I've had literal moments with some of my clients where I want to stick my fingers in my ears and say, la, 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 I'm not hearing this.
Yeah.
So, we all know that sometimes not everything that we do, and even some of us just as professionals ourselves, we know that some of our own passwords and digital hygiene is probably not as clean as it could be.
Okay.
So let's clean the house first.
Yeah, get our own house in order. And remember that we are, I guess, to keep with the cleaning mode, we're custodians of client data, right? I mean, it's like we've got boxes of their information in our house.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't leave it out on the front, it shouldn't be on the front doorstep.
Exactly.
Come on in.
You don't want to freak out and really, alarm people, but at the same time, you do need to say, hey guys, this probably isn't cool. If you haven't changed your password in 7 years, maybe today would be a good day to do that.
Right.
So let's tidy up everything in-house first. And also another strategy to do this, which is something that I do recommend in the book, is whenever possible, pass it up the food chain. Like, if I'm working with a small business, maybe one that's doing some online sales, I never want them to even have access to credit card information.
Yep.
Like if they're using a payment gateway, let's say they're building their website on Shopify or something, then they may be able to log in and see the last 4 digits of a credit card number that somebody used just so they can quickly verify it with the customer. But there's kind of a beautiful thing if even the business themselves can't access the information, then it can't be mishandled.
Yeah, you're paying that entity, so use their service and let them keep the headache, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So some really simple, practical, like checklists and tips are in my book of how to just, tune up your digital hygiene a little bit inside the office, or marketers get your clients to do it as well. It's just good practice. I know everybody's got a lot of stuff on their minds these days. It's a tough time in the world, but the last thing any of us need is a data breach on top of everything else we're dealing with.
You mentioned a DPA in the book. Could you just
Yeah.
tell us what that is?
Yeah. So this is where things start to get like pretty granular, but a DPA, or data processing agreement, is something that is suggested through the GDPR. So again, this is for people that are in the European Union, but again, it's not a bad idea to do it everywhere. A data processing agreement is a little bit of like a digital handshake that you as the business have with an organization that is processing data on your behalf. So for example, let's talk about a payment gateway, or let's say you're using a tool like ConvertKit to send out email marketing stuff. So you technically own the customer data because it is yours as the corporation or the business entity.
Yep.
But you are asking, Shopify or ConvertKit or, Stripe as the payment gateway or whatever. You're asking them to process information on your behalf. So a data processing agreement is a bit of it is literally an agreement. And if you look in the fine print, you probably have one when you use these services. It's saying like, hey, I'm aware of the GDPR. I'm going to do everything I can on my end to be cool and good with how I process data. Hey, are you aware of it? Are you doing what's good on your end? Yeah, you are. Okay, cool. Let's shake on it. Yeah, good. We're good. Like, that's what a DPA is.
Got it. Yeah, no, it sounds analogous to just making sure, for example, with my neighbors, okay, my property line goes to here on this side and this side. I'm going to, make a nice fence, but, you guys are responsible. If your tree falls down on your side, that's yours.
Totally.
And it just everybody knows what they've got as their own responsibility. Perfect.
Exactly.
So, this may be surprising to some of these people, but we have spent all this time, Avery, thus far, actually just talking about the foundation of stuff. And like, are you ready for some rapid fire getting more into the actual marketing? Because once we've got all this ready, the whole reason we were doing this was to acquire clients, right?
Totally.
So, maybe let's talk first about how we would use the great landing page content that we have with something like Google Ads, right? Mm-hmm. And organic search. So on Google Ads first, you don't dissuade people from doing it, but you also want to make them aware of the fact that it's rather technical, and they need to be monitored closely.
Yes.
So what's a small business's options as far as how they might get Google Ads going?
Yeah. So the very first thing I want to do is, again, like, reference back everything we've talked about so far, because so often I will see a business or a marketer helping a business will, set up Google Ads, and the idea is, okay, well, we're going to build this beautiful funnel and we're going to drive all this traffic to your site. But what's the point of spending so much time, money, effort, and energy in building a beautiful funnel if it's literally leading them to a sewer? Let's clean up our house in the first thing, okay? So we're going to make sure our site is awesome, our landing page is as optimized as it can be. We're really going to take care of our property first, and then we're going to use a tool like pay-per-click, Google Ads to drum up some traffic and drive traffic over to the site. So what's easier for a marketer to do and harder for a small business owner to do is to try and see the business and the offering more objectively, or from an outsider's perspective.
Good point.
To when you're thinking about things like keyword strategies for your pay-per-click campaigns, oftentimes I'll find the small business owner wants to use keywords that mean things to them personally or mean things to them in their industry, but they might not actually be what their target customer or client is searching for. They also might not be able to make realistic decisions about, keyword competitiveness and how much they're willing to spend for certain particular keywords. I also find, and this is something that, I did write the book for small businesses. There can be a bit of a sense of oftentimes you'll hear advice or you'll read advice in, business magazines. So somebody's reading Forbes or they're reading Fast Company or looking through, some business advice in the Globe and Mail or something. And it'll say like, oh yeah, you should use Google ads. Google ads are great. They're really what will help you like add fuel to the fire of your business. It's like pouring lighter fuel on the fire and it'll really get it going. So then they'll go and they'll sign up for an account, and often because they will use, and no hard feelings, Google, but they do kind of use what I call the drug dealer model. They will mail, we've all seen the mailers that go out, the spend $100, get $400 free or whatever it might be for ad credits. And it's just enough to get you hooked. So you'll log in, you'll start playing around with it. You'll burn through a lot of cash just experimenting. And then if you start to see just a little bit of results, it's just enough to get you hooked to throw more money at it. The problem can be in not stopping to do a really good analysis. And it can be quite hard to know, what is it exactly that worked? Was it, like basically it's like, when you were like in grade 5 and you learned like the scientific method, like one of the key points of the scientific method is isolating your variables. So you can say it's this that worked. It was this word, or it was this A/B test, and it was this thing that we changed on the homepage. That's what drove the traffic. That's what made the good results. And so that's why I don't totally dislike Google ads and pay-per-click, but I have seen people really burn a lot of cash trying to get to that point of understanding.
I think what you're saying is it's an area of professional expertise that people spend all day, every day doing. And if you want to employ their expertise, that's probably good. But if you are already running a department or a business, that also is going to take your time. So pick one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep.
You mentioned, and this will be, I think, controversial to some of the people I know in the pay-per-click space. You say that it seems for organic that you could see a temporary lift when you are running pay-per-click ads, but it'll only be there as long as you're running the pay-per-click ads. Now, let's be clear. What you are not, I don't think you are saying that Google is influenced on the organic side by pay-per-click. So take us through the nuance here. How is this working?
Yeah. So from early days, back when like Matt Cutts was running SEO for Google, he was very, very clear saying Google is church and state. The organic side of search is firmly divorced from the pay-per-click. There is overlap in terms of, if you're doing a keyword optimization strategy for your organic SEO, then you can use some tools like Google Ads Keyword Planner is a really great tool to use. But there is absolutely no correlation, and I've never seen it in all the work that I've done with clients between, I'm going to throw $1,000 at Google Ads, and therefore I'm going to see a bump in my SEO.
And if somebody contacts you and says that and makes that the justification to buy pay-per-click ads, run away.
Run away. The only way they're a little bit related is that we know, and Google says so, they say it in their blog posts, we know a few of the hundreds of data points that go into the algorithm that feed, the search engine results and the search engine rankings. But we do know that one of them is traffic to the site. And that if everything else is exactly equal, a site that gets, maybe 2 or 3 times more traffic will appear higher in search results than the other one. So that's the only thing that Google Ads and pay-per-click can do for you, is it can drive traffic, which then ups, your page views, which then can be one of hundreds of
Thank you.
signals that Google is looking at.
Yeah. And I guess the asterisk there is, and it's traffic that has a good experience on the site.
Yes. So no, Google Ads will not take you from zero to hero with your organic search.
Right. It's another piece of the puzzle. But I'll just go back and underline that thing you said, where you said the work that you're doing to improve how your site experience and content works for your audience. A rising tide lifts all boats, right? So if you make that, and that tends to improve your SEO, guess what? You send the traffic from a paid source to, they'll also benefit from having a better experience. So it's still worth doing the work.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because I mean, we talked about those data points that Google's looking at that inform the algorithm. Those include, is the site mobile friendly? Is the site fast? Is the site accessible? Does it have really clean semantic HTML? Does it like all those other things that make for a really nice user experience? They make for nice accessibility. They also are good for SEO. So, if I haven't given you 9 million reasons to do it, here's another one.
On the topic of reasons to do things, social media. So you explain that your social media has to be deliberate. You have to be thinking. In fact, you give 15 different things that people can do that are reasons to connect with people or to put out content on social media. And you describe some people who, names changed again, that are really just trying to, I don't know, put out a post because it's Monday, or celebrating every, occasion and holiday, that there is just because it's there. And you describe them as treading water, right? And I think that's a beautiful analogy for, all right, so what is the aim of why we're putting the content on social media, and why is treading water, if we're just doing it in that aimless style, why is that a recipe for disaster?
Well, I mean, if we're thinking about, if social media is treading water as opposed to swimming from one point to another, treading water,
a destination,
a lot like swimming, right? You're moving your arms, you're moving your legs. You are definitely getting tired.
Yeah.
You're putting in a lot of effort. You're doing the things you think you're supposed to be doing, but you're not actually moving. And so if we imagine that you're in a swimming pool or, a giant ocean, and if you're treading water and you're moving your arms and you're moving your legs, after a while, if you don't get to the other side, what's going to happen? Like, you're going to drown, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I see with social media often, which I love social media. I'm a big fan of using it personally. I think you can use it and really build a business on social, but you've got to really be deliberate and make sure that, you're putting in the effort. You're moving your arms and you're moving your legs, but are you getting any closer to the shore?
And so to do that, we literally have to, I guess, to keep the analogy, we've got to, pick a fixed point, like a landmark, and say, okay, exactly. I want to be closer to that. So would that be things like referral visits to our site?
Could be. Yeah.
Listens to our podcast?
Could be.
Maybe having a point of view and letting that become part of your brand.
Yep, absolutely could be.
Because you say in one place here, and I think this is important, because I think a lot of people, and I would call this out as a, treading water strategy, is someone that has vague things that support everyone and everything. Mm-hmm. And you say, don't do that. You say, the internet is not a place where you have to be afraid of having a personality. In fact, the internet is a place where people respond to emotion and opinions.
Sure.
So are you giving us permission to go on rants?
Well, a little bit. I'm not giving you permission to be a jerk.
Okay.
Please be a lovely human.
Yes.
But yes, I mean, we've seen this, that, and oh gosh, and even kind of the dark side of this is, we know even just recently through the Facebook papers that content that tends to elicit a response is content that people, share. And
it's a fact of life.
Right? Stuff that I know somebody used to say, if it doesn't make me mad, sad, or glad, I don't want to hear it. it comes back to emotion, right? So I
But
think
we can do it
and be measured,
yeah.
and be professional. We don't need to be radical. But yeah, I mean, it is what tends to work on social media. Instead of just sharing a link, say, hey, I read this article and here's what I think about it. Or, I do agree, or I disagree, and here's why. Or, I saw this the other day, let's say, I don't know, you're a textile artist and you saw a beautiful mural and you love the colorscape and you want to share about how you're inspired to now work that into your textile art or something.
Yep.
Just sharing opinions. At the end of the day, we're humans, and we're humans talking to humans, and humans are emotional. So let's tap into that a little bit.
And I think, there's a kind of a spectrum here of some of them can get very self-serving. And I think we all know those jerks who, I'm thinking of like the Michael Kors, where they were talking about some terrible things and they're like, hey, but our spring sale for bags is on.
Yeah, that was a choice.
So you don't have to go that far, but you can, I think you can meet in the middle where you say, our brand values are this, or our founder started the company because they hated how things were being done and they saw a better way. So you can kind of speak to your tribe, or kind of let people know what matters to you.
Yeah.
And they will likely then turn their heads, probably look at a little bit more than you have. And if they're at a window where they would be buying something like that, well, you're obviously one of the people they're going to look at.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really like that you highlighted the idea of brand values. I think that's something that, going through a values exercise, gosh, just as like an individual, and then of course as an organization, I think is really, really worth doing. It can really help inform your brand voice, and really just let people know what you stand for, and then that's where they can kind of see themselves in you and hopefully align with what you got going on. And then you'll know that you are not for everybody, and that is okay. I am not for everybody, and that is okay. I just want to attract the people that are interested in what I've got going on. Then I'll, hang with them, and that's totally fine. I don't want everybody out there in the world to tune into what I have going on.
I can't think of a better way to sum up actually the whole tone of the book. It's the very opposite of, let's say, what an internet guru would tell you, which is, get massive numbers and, well, frankly, look at me, and do it my way. Right.
Yeah.
I just have to commend you again, because the whole time you are saying, look, marketers, look, small business owners, Avery, I'm one of you. Right. Yeah. And you've made all the mistakes, and you've seen clients that have also made those mistakes, and you're just trying to help people not make so many of them and get on to what they really should be doing, which is growing their business.
Totally.
And I can't thank you enough for the book. Can you tell people how they might reach out to you or find out more about the book?
Sure. So I'm Avery Swartz everywhere. I've kind of got that name locked down on the internet. And then my book, See You on the Internet, of course I could not choose the name of a book without also making sure the domain name was available. So, and we threw a lot of ideas out the window because the title was not available, but seeyouontheinternet.com was available. So therefore that is where my book lives, seeyouontheinternet.com. My training company, Camp Tech, has a lot of really great we're doing webinars still because of the pandemic, but we have a whole bunch that are free for small business owners to attend. And also something kind of fun that's about to drop. I partnered up with LinkedIn to build a course for them for LinkedIn Learning. So my course is all about how you plan a website, and it drops very, very soon. It drops on LinkedIn Learning in December 2021.
We'll put a link in for that.
Yeah.
Wow. That's great. There's a fair number of places to send people, and we'll be glad to do that, as well as mentioning any of the terms that you had taken us through on our talk today. Well, listener, I hope you've gotten some value out of what Avery has said. I know I have. And if you like what you've heard today, and if there's someone else that you know, whether they're a marketer or they're outside of marketing and they need to know some of this stuff for helping their business, please share this with them. And I hope that you found something that makes your lead generation even better.
Thanks for listening. Follow the show on Twitter @Funnel Reboot. If you like what you have heard today, please consider leaving a review wherever you get your podcasts.